My name's Aaron Kavanaugh. I am a real estate agent with the Kaza Group. I am the founding member of Stream. Stream is an acronym that is short term rental, education, acquisition, and management. So we're here to kind of help everybody learn about the short term rental business, buy short-term rentals, and then help with management on the other end of that, whether you're looking for just information or looking for a co-host or something to that nature. I've been in real estate for 22 years. I started my business in the short-term rental game around COVID when things started changing. I am personally located outside of DC in a little town called Berryville. And it's just about 10 minutes away from Winchester, Virginia, but we cover the Shenandoah Valley. And Corey, my partner here, who I will introduce next, is the master at all this. He and I met one another through several channels here on Facebook and really have built a great relationship. And he's my partner in our webinar series here and trying to help as many people as we can do the right thing as far as your income is concerned. So Corey, why don't you just give us a little intro to you and how we can get this thing kicked off?
Sure. So I've been my name's Corey, originally from New York, went to school down in Maryland. I live in where do I live now? I live in
Cary,
Raleigh,
North
North
Carolina.
Carolina. Raleigh, North Carolina now. I started investing in real estate about 20 years ago. Bought some single family homes, used them as long-term rentals, did a couple of rehabs with the Burr method, got involved in some multifamily properties. Bought a number of multifamily properties in Maryland. Early 2021, converted one of our long-term residential properties that was in Annapolis, Maryland, into a short-term rental. Blew the doors off the numbers, then just decided that I wanted to start buying short-term rentals. So I've started buying short-term rentals, own a number of them now, and also manage other people's properties for them. I also now help with design and setup, co-hosting, revenue management, you name it, right? All things short-term rentals. So I was able to leave my full-time job 3 years ago, focus solely on this, and here we are. I am currently don't have the cool setup that Aaron does. We are up in Toronto, Canada right now, so that's where I'm calling you from, and or dialing in from. And we're just on a 2.5 week, 3 week hiatus traveling around. So
Yeah,
Toronto is really catching me right
Corey's
now.
one of those guys that never stops working. So whenever he can get a break with his family, he likes to do that. But at the end of the day, he's still here with us today. So I give him some props for actually taking the time to spend with us. So let's just dive right in. Corey, when you're talking about the topic of the day, the profit playbook, where do you start with building in that profitability? It's not just pricing, but what do you start with when you're looking at a property to be the most profitable that it can be?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to know what market you're getting into and know what the expectations and limitations are of the particular market. I've worked with a number of people who have a number in mind that they want the property to make, and therefore they price the property accordingly, and they fall flat on their face. And the reason they fall flat on their face is because you can't make up numbers in this game, right? You are in a competitive space. There's a lot of other properties. This isn't well, my mortgage is this, so I want to make this per month, which means I should make this per year. And in order to do that, I have to price my property out at this per day. It's actually the other way around, right? It's hey, let's take a look at what the other properties are doing in the market. What do the two bedrooms do? What do the three bedrooms do? What do the four bedrooms do? And then we can go in and figure out what our pricing strategy is going to be for that particular market. And then we can back ourselves into how much are we going to cash flow based upon what the expenses are in that market for that particular property and what your debt service is going to look like based upon how much money you're bringing to the table, what your interest rate is, and what type of loan you're getting.
Yeah, so there's a lot of information right in there. So you're talking mortgage payments, cash to buy the property, cost to run the property, including utilities, cleaning, supplies, furniture. There's a lot of upfront start costs to this that will help you. The more you do upfront, the easier it becomes. The more you project, the more you research, the better you do with finding the right property to begin with. That will help you in being more profitable. But absolutely, what Corey said, knowing your numbers before you make that purchase is most important. So, Corey, we've talked about this a couple of times. Why Shenandoah Valley? Why would you choose to invest in this market?
Yeah, so one of the things I look for on a property that I'm looking to purchase is, and this is a very ballpark rule of thumb metric that I use. But if you're purchasing a property, you want to be able to receive annually 20% of that purchase price in gross revenue. So if you're buying a property for $500,000, you want to be able to gross $100,000 over the course of the year on that property.
Okay,
And that's a starting point for me. If I
sure.
start to fall, into the 10 to 15% range in terms of return percentage wise based upon how much I'm purchasing the property for, I don't bother looking at the property. However,
Got
if
it.
we start to creep up above that 15%, get closer to the 20, it's a property that I'll 100% put my eyes on, see what needs to be done at the property. Does it come furnished? Is it not furnished? Where can I save money on the back end of the purchase and see if it makes it worth it or not?
Yeah, and including like, can I put a little bit more money down payment wise? Can I do some seller financing? Whatever that you can do to kind of lower the costs of that property so that your revenues are going to match that 20% annual revenue number. All right, cool. So go ahead.
No, no, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So if you're looking at, Shenandoah Valley specifically, you know, I look as a real estate agent for properties in our area as a profitable scenario because a few factors. The first is you have the national forest, you have Shenandoah River. Those are the two big draws, and the proximity to other um, places. For example, we are only 2 hours to the west of Washington, D.C., depending on where that property is. So, our avatar, the people that we're trying to bring out to the Shenandoah Valley, they're interested in spending the weekend with us, hiking on the Appalachian Trail, all the stuff in the Shenandoah Forest, as well as on the river. So those are the three big things when we're first talking about finding a short-term rental. It's looking at the different types of markets, destination markets, regional markets, which is what the Shenandoah Valley is, as well as like metropolitan, and then looking into rules and regulations. What are the obstacles in these areas, and then going from there. So for example, in the Shenandoah Valley you can buy a property that is a 2 bed or a 3 bed for about 300,000. You can purchase for that low of a number if that's low in your area, um, and still do pretty well as far as income is concerned or gross revenues. So that's the reason why I'm looking at, or working in this area, is that not only do I live here, but it's proximity to a major city. So I have enough people that come out to visit. The occupancy rates, meaning if you look at certain websites, we'll get into those here in a second, um, to give me like an average of what I can expect for my property to be booked as per month, and then kind of back into the numbers that way. So in the Shenandoah Valley, according to AirDNA, which is one of the sites that we use, it's rated a 96 out of 100. Whether that's right or wrong, I'm not sure what their algorithms are, but that's kind of what I'm seeing. And a lot of people are attracted to our area for the same reasons: close proximity to major cities, the forest, and the Shenandoah River. So, Corey, when you're out there looking at things, clearly there's different markets in our area. What are the hottest markets that you see, or if you were going to buy a house, where you would invest versus others in the Shenandoah Valley?
I think that the this region is good, and when I'm talking about this region, I'm talking about obviously you have Shenandoah, but then you can go a little bit further northwest, northeast, north up into like the Harpers Ferry, West Virginia,
Sure,
New River Gorge in West Virginia as well. I just got a property up and running in Moorfield, West Virginia, which is doing very well. And the price points there are fairly reasonable for what you can expect in terms of a return, but also what you're getting for your money out there.
yeah, for sure,
Western North Carolina is good, but I've seen it. The numbers haven't been as strong. The barrier to entry is much higher. People talk about the Smoky Mountains. I think that the prices to get in there are ridiculous, but everybody has their own motivation for investing.
sure,
So some people are looking to cash flow on properties. Surprisingly enough, there are a lot of people who are not worried about cash flow, right? There are people who are just looking to do a cost segregation study on the property and use it as a tax write-off against their W-2. And so they buy a new property each year for the sole reason of eliminating the taxes that they're paying on their W-2 income. And that's a decent amount of money coming back to them at the end of the year. And that's just as good to them as getting cash flow month over month on the property. So you don't
yeah,
necessarily need to buy the properties for cash flow. If you are looking to buy the properties strictly for cash flow, and that is your main factor, I do not suggest you do a vacation rental loan. Don't do the 10% or 15% down. Your margins are too thin, and if the times get tough, which we're heading into one of those times right now, uh, you're going to be very tight in terms of cash flowing on the property. If you put more money down initially and you get into that 20 to 35% money down, not only are you eliminating your PMI, but you're also getting a better interest rate. You're also your loan, the amount that you're taking the loan out on is lower with a better interest rate, and therefore your mortgage payments are lower, not only because of that, but because of the no PMI. So if you're looking at cash flow, I would put down as much money as possible on the property. If you're not worried about the cash flow, sure, go ahead and buy one of those vacation rental loans. Don't put as much cash down and do a cost segregation study on the property and use that to offset your W-2 income.
yeah. The great points all in there. So there's a lot to unpack with that one. As we were talking with Steven in the beginning, he's got a property in Arizona as well as Long Island, New York. I believe that was right, right? So, in between here, first and foremost, you can get to our properties relatively easy. You're kind of in the middle of all of that. So you're looking at number one, the cost of entry. That's the big part. The second part is type of loan. So if you're doing a 10% down payment second home loan, there are rules and regs to that, and we also have a recording on that, but we can send that out as well. So 10% down payment versus 20 or 35%, depending on the commercial loans for DSCRs and things like that. So the lower your mortgage payments, the safer the opportunity is. Now, somebody might say to you, well, I just want a place to go with my family because it's a lot cheaper to own a house that's being paid for every single month, and then those 2 to 3 weeks that we want to spend with each other, we don't have to spend 10 to 15 grand to do what we need to do. So a lot of times that's an option for people. So just know that when we say profit, it's truly dependent on you. Like he mentioned, the other thing, high income earners, doctors, lawyers, CEOs, people that make a lot of big money during the year in a W-2 job, want to shelter some of their income by purchasing a short-term rental. So I would certainly, look into all three of those options and then decide which one is you, and then we'll step into the next piece. So, Corey, obviously, when you're talking about profitability, the market. So if you're looking in a resort town versus just in Shenandoah, so let's just analyze Massanutten versus Shenandoah, Virginia, as far as beds, baths. What do you think is the difference there? Should be the most profitable type of home.
So this is very specific, right? So if you're
Yeah.
looking Uh, this is a specific resort, a specific area. If you're looking at another area of the country, maybe another resort, you would have to run the numbers there and do a deep dive into those markets. But for what we can say here, I mean, Massanutten is part of the Shenandoah Valley, right? So, but
Yes,
it is
sir.
a resort. So when you are buying in Massanutten, the two bedrooms, the three bedrooms, those things tend to get crushed from a purchase price standpoint to a return on investment standpoint in Massanutten. There's a lot of competition out there, and the larger groups tend to be heading towards those resort areas as a group, right? Five bedroom, six bedroom places that are very over the top. And when I say very over the top, I mean they have their game rooms, they have their hot tubs, they have their fire pit areas, but then they also have movie theaters, mini golf, amenities like that. That's what's going to make you stand out in an area like Massanutten. And in order to be profitable out there, and when I say profitable, I'm talking about hitting my kind of 20% rule. If you're buying a property for 850, $900,000 with some of those bedroom counts, and you need to make the 150 to 200,000 in order to hit that 20% rule, those are the type of amenities that you need in order to get there. So rarely will you find a property that is being sold with all of those amenities in them. Usually you're buying the property and then you're putting those amenities in. So depending on what's there or what's not, you also have to take into consideration the renovation costs and the setup costs on those particular properties. I particularly don't like the larger properties. I think the five, six bedrooms are a little bit more to deal with than I like. I prefer to deal with the two bedroom, three bedroom properties in Shenandoah Valley where the barrier to entry is a lot less. And because it's a smaller property, you don't need as many amenities. You also don't need to do as much renovation. Furnishing the properties is less. So again, just getting into them is a lot less versus what you can make on the properties. So your return is there. You can definitely hit that 20% number that I look for.
Yeah, so for example, Matt, just to give everybody a little window into Massanutten, it's a ski resort. So this is a 12-month opportunity. You can get rentals all year round versus some other places where it's only, maybe 10 months, right? So the most important thing is, hey, it's 12 months. We got that. So we've got golf in the summer, we've got mountain biking, riding up the chairlift with your bike and, riding down the hill. You've got zip lines, you've got bumper cars, you've got indoor water park. All of those amenities are going to only add to the allure of your property. And so having a smaller property in those areas, while that's awesome, you're only going to cater to a certain amount of people, like Corey mentioned. So if you have a 5 or 6 bed place, you can bring in 15, 20 people and they could spend a longer period of time there versus in the Shenandoah Valley outside of the resort area. You can have a 2 to 3 bedroom. I own a 2 bed, 1 bath A-frame that sleeps 6 people, and we're hitting our 20% number annually. So we bought it for 300,000. We put 50K in renovations in it, and last year we hit 76,000 in gross revenues. So now our target market is the couples. We fill up very quickly on weekends, and then it's us and our profitability or revenue management strategy to to fill in those orphan nights. So, looking at the types of properties, not only in the area, but are you looking at a resort? Do you look for longer stays? Are you looking for bigger, number of people? A lot of people out there say heads in beds is a great thing, but we have a specific rule about the number of people per bedroom as far as septics are concerned for the county rules. But Corey, if you were to have a 2 bed, 1 bath property that sleeps six, what is your initial thought to that? How many people would you bring into that property before it gets uncomfortable due to the number of bathrooms?
My rule of thumb is four people per bathroom.
Okay. So that's a very big thing to think about, right? So if you have a 2 bed, 1 bath, that works. If you have 6 people in one house, it's going to be a little tight for 1 bath, right?
Yep.
So looking at that. So we've talked about a lot of things. Does anyone have any questions just yet?
Mark does.
I
Mark, where are you from?
You're on mute, bud. Can't hear you, Mark. You've got mute. There you go. Unfortunately, I can't hear you.
Still can't hear you.
Yeah.
All right, no problem.
Well, put it into the chat, Mark. We'd love to
He
hear
did.
where you're
He
from
did.
and what's going on with you for sure.
Oh, right, that part. You should buy a property not for cash flow, but for the increase in equity. What do I think? Uh, I
Oh,
think it
can you
depends
hear
on.
me now?
Yeah,
Yep,
there we
there you
go.
go.
So I was at a seminar with Charlie Eisman. Clear. I know you know. So that's what he said, and I'm thinking, what? So I just thought I would get your opinion.
My opinion is there's a lot of opinions out there.
Well, that's what
Right? I mean,
that's what I
I think you could
thought.
talk. What'd you say?
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat here.
Yeah,
There's a lot of different vantage points. There are a lot of different experts in this field and people who have different strategies and different ways to go about doing things. There are things that I talk about that you may or may not agree with, and somebody else may have a different vantage point on them. What I've come to figure out in this infancy of a business, right? With short-term rentals, and the runway is still very long here, is who has the biggest microphone, can reach the most people, and knows how to market themselves and speak with the most confidence, seems to be catching the ear of the most people.
are
Uh,
you familiar with Charlie Eisman? You know
I have
him?
not heard of him, no.
Oh, okay. Well, he's in the Virginia area, Reston area,
Sure.
and
Okay.
yeah,
So I'll answer your question though, and this is my opinion, right? Is I think every investor is different. There are some investors who are interested in the cash flow. Personally, that's what I'm going for, right? I'm going for the cash flow. My properties that I buy, I need to be net cash flowing at least $1,500 per month after all of my expenses are paid, including my debt service, in order for me to be interested in the property. Why is 1,500 a number that I like? I don't know. It just works for me. I could speak to somebody else. They might tell you 500 is the number that works for them. You might speak to somebody else and they tell you 3,000 is the number that works for them. You might talk to Charlie and he might say, I don't really care if it cash flows or not. I buy it for the equity. So I think it's all about your investment strategy and what your goals are. My personal investment strategy is to reach that 20% of gross from a purchase standpoint, and then cash flow $1,500 per month on that property at a minimum, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not going to turn down anything higher. Um,
Well,
I'm not banking on equity on any of the properties I purchased in Shenandoah. I'm just not. Shenandoah is an overinflated market. There are people coming in here and paying more money than these properties are worth because they're buying them as investment properties and they know they can cash flow on them. If Shenandoah shuts down short-term rentals tomorrow, which I don't think they're going to, I'm not suggesting that at all. Everyone in that market is going to take a bath because nobody is buying these homes for the same amount that they were purchased as residential living homes.
yeah. And
The
so
money's
Corey,
that the clientele isn't there to afford those properties. This is a short-term rental market, and the prices are creeping up to the return of the
revenues that are being made.
10%, right?
Yep.
So if you go to the Smoky Mountains, that's what I was saying earlier, right? If you buy a two-bedroom property for $700,000, which is what they sell for out there,
Sure.
and you look at what those properties are grossing on an annual basis, is about $70,000. So their returns are about 10% gross of what you're purchasing a property for. Shenandoah, you could still get that 15 to 20, which is why people are coming in here. Now, the more investors that come in and are comfortable with that below 15% threshold, on the return, they're willing to pay more for these properties. They're willing to pay in cash. They're willing to close the appraisal gaps with their own money because they know the property is still going to cash flow better than what they can get in other markets.
For
Is that the
sure.
true value of the property? From somebody who's living in that property as a residence on a full-time basis? No, right? But
For
for that
sure.
investor that's coming in, that's looking at cash flow and looking at what they can do with this property long term in terms of making money, they don't seem to be concerned about the equity because of the amount of cash flow that they're receiving on a month-over-month basis.
Yeah, and
So,
just to take a step back real quick, and I'll get back to you real quick, Mark. The answer to this is there's a value of real estate in the Shenandoah Valley. A lot of this, there's not enough work in the Shenandoah Valley. For example, Stanley, Virginia, a great short-term rental market, but there's no place to work. So a lot of people commute into Chantilly or Fairfax, right? Because the cost of living is so low. So these markets, the average return or equity growth on an annual basis is a lot less than what Loudoun and Fairfax counties would be. So the return on your money, yes, if you hold that property for a long period of time, absolutely. You're going to, someone else is paying the mortgage. The equity is going to grow each and every month. I understand that. You're also going to get all the tax benefits out of owning a property and things like that. But the actual going into the Shenandoah Valley specifically, thinking that you're going to get an appreciation year over year without really
right.
solid financial numbers is not as much as you think it is. Go ahead, Mark.
So the example, if you buy something for 300,000 times 20%, that's 60,000 divided by 12. That's $500 a month profit.
Five
Is
grand.
that
Yeah, sure.
$5,000 a month gross.
what'd
Gross.
you say?
That's gross. So it's $5,000 a month in gross revenue, right? Then
Right,
you have expenses out of that, right? So your expense base, including your mortgage, should be around 40 to 50%, depending. In
right.
some of these, or it's going to be a little bit less.
Wow. Well, that's a good profit if you can get that. Yeah.
You can get it.
That's why we're here having this conversation, right? So
You can get it. You can 100% get it. And the 5,000 again is not profit, right? Like the
Right. Yeah.
5,000 is your gross number. But from that 5,000, if you're doing it right, you should be able to profit over $1,000.
correct.
Yeah. And that's about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, go back to let's look at the rules and regulations of the area. Let's look at the proximity of larger cities that are around you so we can have enough people to draw in. Number one, price of entry. Like you can get a really reasonable property for 300,000 still. Now that number is starting to creep up a little bit higher than that, but you can still get in there. Um, and all of the amenities that are here, National Forest, Shenandoah River, the wineries, breweries, other things like that. So the length of stay, right? That really depends on the clientele. But if you go to Disney, most people are staying for a week or two. If you go to the Shenandoah Valley, their average stay is 3 to 4 days max. And then you're looking at cities like Nashville. You might spend some more time there. So just understanding the markets and how they operate, who the person is that's going to visit those locations that you're really starting to target are all parts of building a profitable business. So, stepping into the tools, Corey, what tools do you use once we identify a property that's going to be able to, you can use to analyze the opportunity?
Uh, like Air DNA you're talking about?
Yeah, like AirDNA, Price Labs. What are the tools that you use to kind of make an analysis of a property?
I only use Air DNA.
Okay,
Air DNA is what it's my tool to see what is going on in the particular market.
sure,
Not only do I look at the properties that are the subject property, right, and what AirDNA suggests that it could bring in, which is not an exact number. I've seen those numbers be higher and lower, but it gives you a ballpark of where you will be.
of course,
Typically, if you're below or around $35,000 per year, it's probably not a good property. Those properties, once they hit that number, that's kind of on the lower end of what AirDNA maps out. And so when you see a property that has 35,000, it's almost the floor of where they are. So when you see the $35,000 number, I typically don't even pay too much mind to those properties. But when you do see a property, it looks like it will generate the gross income that you're looking for, which by the way, as a side note, if you're looking at AirDNA and you look at the gross number that's on there, that number includes all of the fees associated with the gross revenue. So if you see a property on there and its gross revenue is 70,000, that includes all of the cleaning fees that somebody is charging on the property. So if you have a cleaner who is charging you $100 a month, you do on average, is the number I use, as 10. You're doing 10 cleans per month. I'm sorry, $100 per turn. You're doing 10 turns per month. That's $1,000. That's $12,000 over the course of the year that is going right to your cleaner, right? So it is gross income, but 1,200 of that is knocked off the top right away to go to your cleaner.
Does that make sense to everybody? I would think so. Okay. So, while we're using AirDNA, there are two or three other sites that you can go and use. The other ones that I have, paid attention to is a site called Mashvisor. They have a subscription-based tool that you can use to analyze property. There's also Rabbu, RABBU.com. That one is a free service. You can get in there and actually do an analysis as well. They the banks, when you're doing a DSCR loan, the banks and all of those guys tend to use that airdna.co. So if I was you and you're interested in short-term rentals as an investment at all, I would certainly subscribe to the professional version of that tool so that you can get some more insights there. It does give you a little bit more detail. A step further, when I'm analyzing a property,
Alternatively, I mean, I've got the professional setup on AirDNA.
yeah,
So if you need help with it, or you want a property that you want to analyze, just call me.
yeah, perfect.
I'll
Um,
walk you through it.
the other thing that I do, and I'm learned this from Corey along the way as well. So in AirDNA, it actually shows you where the property is, and then down below there's a list of actual Airbnbs. That property may even be included of the actual numbers that those places are performing based on the tool. So if you are looking that in a very densely populated Airbnb location, you're going to be able to pull out some content that's really valuable. Like you can see direct competition and what they're producing. Not to say that they're great, not to say that their management style is the best, but you can really get to know a specific area by looking at the Airbnbs around it and what their occupancy rates are, what their nightly rates are, and you can really back into your numbers that way. Um, Corey, just for fun, some of the things that we talk about, when it comes to expenses, I try to get as many expenses as we can and add all of those up. So whatever that, and I'm not talking about down payment or anything. I'm talking about like monthly costs, right? So you've got mortgage, insurance, taxes, utilities, supplies, all of those things, whatever that number is. So you add all that up. Let's just call it $2,000 hypothetically. That divided by 30 days is your very bare bones minimum before you start losing money, right? And so you then have to look at the comps around you and say, okay, where are the comps compared to this number, right? And then you put on the profitabilities that you're looking for, and then you say, okay, at 20%, is this a number that the market will bear? At 10% or 30%, and so holidays are different, right? So I'm just talking averages now, but I want you to get that baseline expenses down so I cannot go below $100 a night. If I do, then I'm losing money. I'm just giving the property away. You know what I mean? So I'm very physical when it comes to that stuff. And I'm not saying that that's the right way, but I want to know that number so that when I'm putting in, and the next conversation we're going to use is around Price Labs and that dynamic pricing tool. When we're looking at Price Labs at that, nightly rate, I can plug in my bottom line and know I'm not going to go below that. So, Corey, give us a little insight as to what Price Labs is about. What is dynamic pricing? Your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So if anybody's ever stayed at a hotel or gotten an airplane ticket, the pricing on your airline ticket or your hotel night vary, right? Depends on how far out you are from the trip. The closer you are to the trip, the pricing will fluctuate. The further away you are, it will fluctuate as well. If you look at the price today, it'll be different from a week from now to 2 weeks from now. It goes up and down. It goes up and down based upon the inventory, not just at that particular hotel or airline, but also the inventory that's available at other airlines and other hotels in the area. So Priceless aggregates all the data of the properties that are in the area that are similar to yours. It looks at their occupancy and knows whether or not to raise your price on, which it does on a daily basis, raise or lower your price to be more competitive with the other properties in the area to keep you full, depending on what you've asked Price Labs to do for you from a setup perspective. All of these services that are offered, AirDNA included, all they are tools, right? So I could give you a hammer and a screwdriver and a wrench. If you don't know how to use each tool or what to use each tool for, it can get very confusing and very in the weeds. Price Labs has about 100 different levers that you can pull on there, and each lever you pull affects one of the other levers that's out there. So if you are going into Price Labs, and I see a lot of people do this, they go and set up a base rate because they want to make a certain amount of money. That base rate is going to fluctuate way high and then maybe not as low as they need in order to get themselves booked to a point where they're going to start making money.
Sure.
I have seen very nice properties and people who want to make X number of dollars. I can think of somebody in Boise right now who's in the middle of trying to figure it out and just watching their calendar sit open because they don't know how to use the tool properly. And if you don't know how to use the tool properly, you're going to sit there with an open calendar. The trouble with all these systems is you don't know what you don't know. So as you teach yourself and you read different things and you try something, you're going to be convinced that what you've done is proper and what you've done is the right setup. However, you're going to sit there and scratch your head when your calendar doesn't fill and you don't know which one of the 100 levers to pull in order to make something happen on the property without crushing yourself and giving the place away for free, essentially. Right?
Sure.
The goal is to know what levers to push, not just in Price Labs, but also in your management software and then on the properties as well, in order to have them all work cohesively together in order to get the most occupancy at the highest rate you possibly can.
For sure, for sure. So we just had a question come in on the chat here. Any tips on managing short-term properties remotely?
Sure. What tips are you looking for? What question do you have specifically?
Oh, so that question I posted the question, and
Sure.
generally, I mean, I don't have a short-term rental right now, but I'm very interested, but skeptical on how do we manage, maybe in Florida or somewhere, Shenandoah, I don't know, wherever.
Where do
My,
you live?
I live in Ashburn, so I'm a couple of hours away from here,
Okay,
Shenandoah.
sure. Well, I can tell you, I live in Raleigh, and the closest property to me right now is about 4.5 hours away. So I'm in Toronto right now. I think I am 6 hours from my closest property. So actually, is it further than that? I think
It's
I'm
further
further.
than that.
It's further, right?
I used to live, it's 10 hours, buddy. At
Okay,
least that.
I'm
Yeah,
10
yeah,
hours, right?
yeah.
Uh, so if you have similar to Price Labs and all the other stuff out there, if you have the right tools and you know how to implement them and you have the right teams in place, managing remotely is fairly easy. It's not completely hands off. There are still problems that arise. I was touring a castle this morning with my kids and my wife, and 10 o'clock when checkouts are going on, people are pinging me about this and that, and I can walk around and respond to them via the messaging, but it's not completely hands off. So it does take up some of my time, but not as much as it would if I had to go into an office. Um, but yes, managing remotely is possible. There are other people who I know people who live in California that manage over here themselves, no problem. If
Right.
you have the right teams in place and you have the right processes in place, it's 100% able to do. If you're for having, if you're interested, I do coaching on that and consulting on that, so I can help you walk you through the process to show you what that looks like and how to do it. Happy to help you out there.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it's really not a bigger deal. If you don't have the proper people in place, it becomes a problem. If you have good resources, a good contractor, a good cleaner, a good handyman, whatever, something that can be easily reached and they can get to that property within a couple of minutes. Now, that also goes back to rules and regulations. Like a lot of these places will require you to have a within a certain range of a place for a person to reach out and say, "Hey, I got a problem. I need some help." If you're in California, clearly that's not going to help. If you're in Ashburn, you're 2 hours away. That may help, but not be able to be responsive enough. So it goes back to the number of the right contractors in your wheelhouse that you can call immediately and solve a problem,
and it's
right?
also, what do you want to do, right?
Yeah,
Do you want to manage it? Because then there's also the other route to take. And I do a lot of these. You can hire somebody to do it for you, right? I do co-hosting for people. I take a percentage of all the bookings that come in, and I handle everything, right? This is my full
that's your
time. I don't
business.
know. Is it my
Yeah,
full time? Like, this is what I do, right? So I'm
yeah.
available all the time. Uh, Very easy to get a hold of. Aaron knows that. Probably annoyingly easy, right?
Annoyingly easy is the answer to that. Dude, if I text you too late at night, you're still responsive. So I don't know how you sleep, but that's
So
okay.
yeah, I mean,
You
so
know,
like I'm available all the time. So you can hire. I do co-hosting, right? So you can also hire a co-host. Now that does take away some of your profit. So if you're not in it for the profit and you're in it for, or you're not in it for, not the profit, if you're not in it for the cash flow and you're in it more to do the cost segregation study, the short-term rental loophole, I don't even fully understand what that is, but I know it's out there.
right.
And do the write-off against your W-2. You can hire somebody like me, and I will run the property for you. You won't have to worry about a thing. And then it's running itself, and you're just getting the tax write-off at the end of the year.
Yeah, and you might still even make some money too. The
Yep.
honest answer is, Corey took a property that I had sold to a gentleman that lives near Seattle, and that particular unit, purchase price I think was 425. Was that right, Corey? Something like that. Yeah, 420, 425. He was expecting to make about 80,000. The first 6, 8 months he was in it, going, "Yeah, I'm writing checks here, bro. I'm not happy." And so we introduced him to Corey. And Corey now is co-hosting to him, and he's actually taking in, what is it, $2,000 to $3,000
About $1,000 to $1,500 a month, right?
I didn't, yeah, it didn't, I mean, 2 or 3,000 in profit. Some of that goes to you, and then
Yeah, so
his
that's
take
even
home
after I
is,
get paid, right? So
yeah,
he's not only is he not dealing with the property now, right? Because I'm taking care of everything, he's
yep,
also making money on it.
right,
And it does go to the idea that you do need to know how to operate these things properly. Um,
sure,
you can have a good property that's operated poorly and it won't make any money. It
for
just
sure,
won't. You won't get booked.
for sure.
However, you could have an okay property that's managed properly and you could make money. So two people can have the same property. One person can make money on it, and the other person might not make any on it. It's it's the same exact philosophy as if you're running a business. Two people can run a business. There's 100 different ways, again, to skin the cat, and
Yep,
you can run your business how you want to run it. Somebody might be successful, somebody else might fail. There's
there you
different
go.
processes you can put in place, different tools you can use, different people you can get. And if you get the wrong processes, you get the wrong tools, and you get the wrong people, you're going to drown. If you get all the right tools and the right processes and the right people, you're going to succeed, or you have a better chance of success.
Better chance
I
is
don't
the
want to
answer
say you're
for
going
sure.
to succeed.
So we've talked about a lot of things. I'll recap here really quick. But does anybody have any questions about co-hosting, price labs, anything specific that we
Yeah,
can
let's
help
open it
answer
up. I
while
would
we're
love
here?
to
Yeah,
hear questions from anybody or nobody.
we did such a good job. Again, Corey, you're the master at this.
Yeah.
All right, so just as a quick recap, so to start off the whole conversation, the profit playbook. Certainly we want to talk, and Corey and I will say this over and over and over again, but it starts with the 3 Ps: the right property, the right people, and the right pricing, right? So once you find those three things, you're going to be pretty good. Okay. Then it's making sure that, you know, you're analyzing the location all the way down to rules and regs, possibility of being shut down, what tools you're going to use, like AirDNA, like Mash Visor, like Rabu, you know, all of the good things that go with making sure that the properties are going to be set up accordingly, that are going to match what others around you are doing. So what your competition's looking like. So price of entry, the property itself, the people that you have help. Um, Obviously, Ampy just typed in here photography. That's a huge piece of this puzzle. You can't use cell phone photos. You have to have professional photography, drone photos, maybe even floor plans, just like we do in regular real estate, if not even better, because you're now looking at experiences within Airbnb, right? Airbnb is really pushing that experience button up there, and they want you to have those photographs set up to really bring in the traffic. They want to have a high quality product, and they're relying on you, the homeowner, to place your property on that platform, get good reviews, as well as all of the other things that make them look good too. So just remember, profitability is also about experience. So we talked about cost segregation. We talked about the ability to use the property for yourself, as well as, you know, running it for cash flow. So if you have any questions about any of this, Corey has a business that he can, you know, answer any of your questions about it. He's done this for the last 10 or 15 years. He comes from a background of real estate as well, through that knows the numbers very, very well. I am a real estate agent. I can help get you started, but if I have a question about pricing and, you know, those other things, I actually refer to Corey a lot. So if you're really interested in more information, Corey's business is really amazing. Um, I'm here as a real estate agent to kind of help you buy the things and stuff like that. So we're not going to put you in front of a property that's not going to perform or shouldn't perform. It's just a matter of the numbers at that point. I'm looking for very specific properties. Now, out of the thousands of homes that are out there, I only pick about 10% that actually look like an Airbnb to me. So, Corey, anything you have to say?
I think that's it, man.
Cool. Thank you again for your time. I know it's, you know, thank your wife for taking that hour away from the fam.
She's
Uh,
used to it.
I know it. Ampy, thank you for leading the charge here with all of the chat. Again, I'll throw it out there one last time. Anybody have any questions?
This has been very helpful. Thank you. I'll reach out to you guys separately.
Awesome. Very good. Well,
Appreciate this.
that's
Thank
the
you.
other thing. This is being recorded, so if you have questions you want to review back to the thing, or just give us a shout, we're happy to help you. If you have any friends or family that are thinking about the same stuff, they haven't attended today, we'll share the video. We'd love to talk to them as well. So thank you for your time.